Welcome to Spotlight On, the Barton Partnerships podcast series that really has the opportunity to talk to inspirational leaders and individuals across the industries, private equity, financial services and corporates as well. Today I'm joined by Tim Farazmand, a seasoned and exceptional chair in NED with a private equity background. Tim's been in the market, in the industry now for nearly 40 years. 12 years at Lloyds Development Capital, former chair of British Venture Capital Association, chair of Palatine Private Equity Impact Fund, chair of the corporate finance advisory firm PCB, recently stepped down from the board of British Business Bank. I'll stop in a second, I'm getting there. Board member of Pantheon International and BSVT, advisory board member of Beachbrook Capital, Battalia Capital and GK Strategy. And you're building a house at the same time at the moment.
Quite, yeah.
That's crazy. Tim, thanks for joining us today. It's really good to have you here.
Pleasure.
I mean, just talk us through your career. I mean, you know, that's a hell of a career to get into. You've always been associated with investment with private equity from the start. What first drew you into that?
Well, it was good fortune or good luck, really. I left university and joined IBM.
Right.
And spent 4 actually very enjoyable years there. But it was a very paternal organisation in those days, and,
right.
and it was a time-served organisation as well in those days. And you know, when you're in the early 20s, very ambitious, you think you're better than you are, want to be moved on more quickly than you are. And I just got very itchy feet, and so I was looking outside. After 3 years, I nearly left them to join the music industry.
Right.
Which would have been a different career altogether.
Okay, because you have a secret passion for reggae music.
I have a huge passion for
wow.
all sorts of music, but reggae in particular.
Yeah.
No, very. Well, we could do another podcast on that.
Absolutely.
But then, having turned down that role in the music industry, a year later, was literally reading the job adverts in the back of the Sunday Times when that such a thing existed.
Yeah.
And saw this opportunity for a business in venture capital called 3i. I had no idea what it was, but the text was very compelling. So I applied on spec, and as I went through the interviewing process, got to understand a little bit more about what that was, and thought, actually, this is going to be really good fun. So I left IBM on a Friday night and joined 3i on a Monday morning, and it sounds a bit twee, but went from selling computers to selling money in the space of 48 hours.
Amazing.
And so that was it.
And that was
a long time ago.
And you got hooked.
I got hooked and never left.
And you're still hooked now. You're still as passionate.
Yeah,
I mean, you
absolutely.
are actively involved.
Yeah.
Like unbelievably so, actually. In terms of how I don't know. I mean, I thought I was busy, but I mean, you really are full up with stuff at the moment, aren't you?
It is. I mean, I love business, and what does that mean? I love working with the management teams in business.
Right.
And that's, for me, it's addictive.
Yeah.
And I have been so fortunate to work with some fabulous teams throughout those 35, getting on towards 40 years now.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me hooked and keeps me interested. You know, it's just some, and those teams you inevitably, because of the nature of our industry, you work with in a very intense way for a limited period of time, 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
But actually, you make lifelong friends.
I was going to say it has a lasting impact on you.
Absolutely, you keep those teams I've been fortunate enough to work with over the years have remained pals to this day, and keep in regular contact with, become family friends, and so on. So it's just been a privilege.
When you think about the last, as you say, nearly 40 years now, I mean, you know, the private equity industry, you'd argue, has become more prominent over the last 5 to 10 years. Really become the driving force behind the economy to a point. How have you seen it change in that time from your perspective?
I mean, it's a completely different industry to the one I joined. I mean, by almost every measure, scale, geographical reach, maturity of businesses that are invested in, it's just very different. But for me, and I think, again, I'm very passionate about this, in relatively recent time, the last decade or so, one of the most positive changes has been the development of impact, and the whole focus around impact investing, and what is the impact of the investments that you make. And one thing that is changing, and I think will definitely change in my lifetime, is the whole look at every business not just on a risk return basis, but a risk return and impact basis.
So talk about that. So that the definition of impact. What is that? Just to be clear.
The impact is what hopefully positive social or environmental output does that business that you're backing have.
Yeah.
And certainly with my work with Palatine, where I chair the impact fund there, we will, there's the proportion of businesses we can look to invest in is limited by those that will make either a very positive social and or environmental impact, and which we can measure and actually demonstrate back to our investors that we're having that positive societal impact, as well as delivering the returns that they want. So we're not compromising on returns. In fact, we think we're backing better quality businesses.
I understand.
By finding those sort of opportunities.
Now, I mean, we are, the Barton Partnership's B Corp registered, right? Absolutely. And we're very proud of that. Fantastic. How does that factor? Is that a measure for you?
It is increasingly now. I mean, I think certainly within the impact fund, the businesses we back are either B Corps when we back them, or we help them. We're a B Corp ourselves,
right?
Or we help them on their journey to get that accreditation,
right? And
that's not the be all and end all, but it's really it's a
point of reference.
It's a point of reference, absolutely. And it's not, as you'll know, it's not something that's easily gained. It's a lot of hard work to achieve that accreditation.
So when you think about the difference between a good and a great investment, I'm sure there's a long list of answers to give, but I mean, the sort of top 3, top 5 sort of views on that. What's the differential between a good and great investment these days?
I mean, top 3 would be all management.
Yeah, really.
To be blunt, and that's one truism that hasn't changed throughout the whole. I mean, a great management team can clearly deliver a really good outcome with even dare I say, a mediocre business or in a business that's not in a high growth sector. A poor team can screw up a great business. Yeah. So that is key. So the one thing that's always kept me focused in anything I look at, and it's again something I share with as many people as I can, is the focus on what I call the 3 Ps and an E. Yeah. And that's people, products, projections, and exit. But people first and foremost. If there isn't a team there that I rate, that I can trust to deliver what they say they can, they may need some additions and some support, which you get their buy-in to. But if it's not there, then I don't care what the business does, how profitable it is. I'm not interested. It's got to. So you would discount the opportunity to invest or buy that company based on the existing management team, and not perhaps the art of the possible in terms of installing a new management team that could take the business forward. Look, there are times when you have to affect a lot of change.
Yes.
And to be fair, there are other people participate within the private equity industry that see management much more as a commodity than I do.
Right.
And that's worked. So it's not been an unsuccessful strategy. But for me, you need the kernel of a team that may need enhancing, may need development. And it's down to leadership. If I haven't got a CEO who inspires me, and more to the point will inspire the team that they're working with, then I have to think long and hard. It may be that CEO is very open about only being in situ for a limited period of time. They don't want to be there necessarily for the whole journey. Yeah. But as long as they recognise that and you can work with them to find succession for them, then that's the focus for me.
And the definition of a great management team: cohesiveness, communication. What else do you look for? Right.
Absolutely, integrity. I think really good communication skills, both between themselves, within the business, and with their client base and other stakeholders. I think an ability to develop show flexibility to adapt to changing situation. Yeah. To have a good strategic view of where they want to drive the business to. So there's a whole combination of factors.
Yeah. Do you feel that there is, when someone comes in, when an investor comes in, perhaps there's a resistance to change or actually are they receptive and excited about the opportunity?
I think that the right teams are receptive. Right. Definitely. So, but sometimes you need to take them on that journey with you. Yeah. And understand what great can look like if they're not there then yet. But you can definitely. The right teams understand that and want to embrace that.
And do you feel that, I mean, again, there's this stigma with private equity coming in that the pressure ramps up, it all becomes about the numbers. Have you taken that approach in your career? Like, again, this as I say, this image of private equity is like, oh my God, that, now private equity owned or backed, the pressure's going to be, we've got someone on the board now that's just going to be sitting there saying, talk about the numbers, talk about numbers, talk about numbers. Has that been your approach when you've looked at this?
I hope it's not been my approach. And actually, that's one, again, coming back to what you asked about earlier, that's one big change I've seen during my career in the industry. It was all about the numbers at the start,
right?
And it doesn't do the numbers stack up, and dare I say, looking to drive efficiencies out of the business. That was the sort of the initial take with private equity. Then the smarter operators looked to see how they could help the team grow the top line, and do that.
Yeah.
And what staggered me for years, and I like to think I embraced this from pretty early on in my career, was the most valuable asset within the business was the team.
Yeah.
And you diligence them and get a sense of their capabilities, their compatibilities, but then you do nothing about investing in the team.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that staggered me, that you somehow, a management team that were, as it were, fit for purpose on the day you invested, could double, treble the size of the business, either organically or inorganically, and not need any help and support to do that.
Yeah.
And I think what the whole industry now understands that, and I hope I've been a bit at the forefront of that, is the need to invest in the team to help them develop, help them broaden their skill base and experience, and open their minds to other opportunities. So that's absolutely fundamental.
But also perhaps bringing people to complement and enhance.
Definitely.
Right, and leave the door open for that opportunity as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we always say clearly, obviously, that having the right people in the right positions at the right time is critical for success. Yeah. But that CEO position is perhaps the most crucial, as you say, the kernel one. We'll come back to that. Let's talk about you again, because again, you've got a phenomenal career. Obviously, your move into a portfolio career. What prompted that transition? Obviously, Lloyds Development Capital LDC was your last, I would say, full-time gig, right?
That's correct. Yeah. No, well, I was inspired by the chairs that I'd worked with throughout my investment career, and I've worked with some brilliant chairs who are still friends today. I had breakfast with a chair I'd worked with on a number of occasions yesterday morning. Yeah. And I'd learnt so much as well as an investor by working with really, really smart chair people. Yeah. And I thought I want to put that learning into practice. Okay. And so I gave my senior colleagues at LDC plenty of notice. I told them 2 years ahead of me wanting to step down, again with succession planning in mind. Yeah. That's what I wanted to do. Yeah. The quid pro quo was I wanted to be able to take on one or two external roles whilst I was still full-time with LDC. So I didn't wake up, it was actually on the 1st of January 2016 with an empty diary scratching my head about what do I do now. Quite. And that worked very well. So I took on a couple of roles. So I had the transition to get out of bed. Yes. And then because that's so important, isn't it? Yeah, that purpose, etc. Exactly. And planning that transition, it's critical. And also not being over anxious about just taking something that someone offers you. It's got to be right for you. It's got to be right for the business that you're going to work with. Yeah. And have I made mistakes? I'm sure I have in the last 11 years, but I have seen others make really serious mistakes where they've taken an opportunity because they felt the need to take something on just to have that transition, which wasn't right for them. Let's come back to it because that's a really important topic. Just talk to me then about what you've learned to become as effective as you are. What are some of the key qualities that you think are essential for a good chair or non-exec? Well, I mean, you've absolutely got to be a great listener. Right. You've got to be a good communicator. You've got to understand the need for a clear strategy and to bring the team with you on that journey on the strategy. Yeah. You've got to understand how you can measure how you're performing on that journey. Yeah. You've got to be working with a cohesive team. That can create the right culture. Yeah. That inspires the rest of the team in the business. So there's a whole host of things you need. And that's challenging because you've gone from being an operator where you're almost telling someone what to do, rolling your sleeves up. Yeah. To someone now, as you say, that needs to listen and guide and mentor. That's not an easy transition, is it? No, it's not. It's not, and you have to be. It's definitely not a one size fits all. Yeah. Each team, each CEO you work with, you have to adjust accordingly. Right. But it's just been such a great time, and I mean there were three things I promised myself that I'd do when I embarked on this. One was only work with people I enjoy working with.
Yeah.
And it's, again, that sounds a bit cliche, but it's the privilege of the plural role that you don't feel, as I said, you shouldn't feel compelled to take on just any role. So work on a role where you actually feel this is a team I'm going to really enjoy working with. And I don't think it's been a morning where I've woken up in the last 11 years thinking, oh, goodness.
I've made a mistake.
Goodness, it's that team today.
And so have you discounted great businesses based on poor leadership?
Yeah. No,
really?
There are opportunities I've just known wouldn't work. It would have been a car crash.
Yeah.
So that's key. Secondly is where you definitely think you can add some value.
Yeah.
Not that anybody would want me for a titular role, but you've really got to see, actually, I think my experience or skill base or network or a combination can really add value to that particular opportunity.
Yeah.
And then the final thing, so those two elements, I think a lot of people adopt. But the one thing that I've also learnt is actually also recognising, coming back to your role, back in the right people at the right time, that you've outlived your usefulness in a role.
Yes.
Before the person, to be blunt, who's probably
turning
paying
around
you
and says,
and saying, well, actually, Tim, I don't think this is working.
Yeah.
So be aware, be alert.
Yeah.
And then you can have the adult conversation, which I've had, excuse me, a number of times in the last period of time, where I've said, look, when I joined the business, we were in here, and I think the skills I had and what was needed was right. But now we've moved to a different position.
But when you start a relationship, when you start as an advisor, chair, or NED, do you define a cadence for you with them? Is there a sort of an SLA, as it were, that you sort of set that helps you understand if you're adding value beyond just giving advice and having conversations? How does a chair or NED know if they're actually working and doing the right thing?
No, it's a good question, and I've never, as it were, put a formal SLA down, but I think you do carry it around in your mind about what does good look like? Am I actually delivering here? Is the business delivering here? Is it working?
Yeah.
So absolutely, you have that
because they're paying for your experience.
Yeah.
They're paying for you. They're paying for someone who's been there, seen it, and done it, that can help them make perhaps mistakes.
Especially as a lot of teams that I work with, and the team, to be blunt, I prefer working with, are the teams that are taking on institutional capital for the first time.
Yeah.
So they've worked with a bank in the past, but that's probably been the limit. So actually having that ugly private equity investor sitting on their board alongside them, and actually understanding how to engage, how to get the most out of that relationship, how to work with them.
Yeah.
I think that's a key, having sat that side of the fence myself for such a long time, actually enabling the team to develop, not supplanting that relationship, but supporting them in developing that relationship with their investor.
Yeah.
Absolutely critical.
And how much is a factor that, clearly when you look at a chair or NED, experience, track record, etc., what about contacts and connections? Is that a factor as well? Is that an important sort of point of reference that you've got someone who is actually connected to people that if they don't know the answer, or they don't know the person, or they can make introductions? Is that a point of reference as well?
Completely. 100%.
So your network, because I know your network is extremely strong. You've invested a lot of time building that up over the years.
That for me is my possibly my most valuable asset.
Right.
I mean, I learned early on the power of relationships, and I've invested my network throughout the 35 plus years I've been involved, and hopefully maintain that network in the right way. So actually working out which parts of my network will be most valuable for the business I'm working with, and affecting those introductions and so on, making sure that they work is key and critical. Yeah.
I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast with you on time management, because I don't know how you'd fit everything into one day. But tell me, from your experience, how can boards then best support CEOs without interfering? You said being a good listener.
Yeah.
And the ability to influence. Yeah,
I think there's a couple of key. One is setting very clear and agreeing very clear goals with the CEO, so that they really understand what's expected of them.
Yeah.
Then giving them the time to actually get on and do that. And what do I mean by that? It's twofold. One is, and I don't know, you may know that for yourself, that a lot of the time you spend, and it's exaggerating, but firefighting, you're reacting to stuff.
Yeah.
Things that you weren't expecting to happen as the CEO. Oh, crikey, okay, now I need to do this, do that, which is great, and that's part of the job. But also, as a board, finding a way of creating some space for the CEO to have some thinking time, some strategic thinking time, so they can actually step back and step away and think about what they do next. The other couple of things I'd put into the mix on that, which I really encourage the CEOs I work with. One is, look, as a chair, there's an element of coaching and mentoring you do with the CEO.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm a big believer in external coaches or mentors that are nothing to do with the business.
Yeah.
That it enables the CEO and other senior members of the team to actually take a step back and have a conversation, complete confidence that's not, and no risk of compromise at all.
So do you do offsites with them? Do you take them?
Yeah. But also encourage them to build those relationships. The other thing I think, again, and not all private equity investors support this, but as a chair, I try and encourage the CEOs I work with for themselves to have one external non-exec directorship to give them an insight into a completely different business challenge and business opportunity.
Right.
Again, I think it helps develop their thinking. They can bring that back into their own business.
Interesting.
I think more than one probably there's a risk of them being spread too thinly.
Yes.
But I've seen enough CEOs I've worked with that I've encouraged to do that. I think if you went and asked them, they'd come back and say, that was great.
But the typical commitment is what, a day a month though? So it's not for an NED chair?
Yeah,
so
it's not overly onerous. I mean, there's prep time before and after.
Of course.
You're right. But yeah, in terms of physical time spent outside, it's a day or two.
Right.
So I think, look, if a good CEO can't afford that time outside of the business, where it's not just dedicated to that, they're learning from that and bringing that learning back into their own business, then I think there's something probably not quite right there.
Yeah.
Most good CEOs should be able to manage their time.
And the common mistakes that you see boards make, what your view on that?
Crikey. That's another podcast.
Yeah, really. Okay, right.
But I mean, no, there are. I mean, poor communications, too short-term focused, lack of strategic goals, lack of developing an appropriate culture.
Yeah.
Communication. There's sadly, it can sound like everything's been perfect. Of course, it hasn't been over those years, and you see a lot that hasn't worked. Yeah, and of course you learn from those. So do
you have a standard diagnostic that you do when you first join? I'm assuming you do things like one-to-ones with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, have you got to the point where it's systematically you've got a set questionnaire that you will go through that helps you build up a picture?
Build up that picture. Again, you have to adjust accordingly to the particular business and the particular team.
Right.
But it helps. For me, I find it hugely informative to set the framework for how I engage going forward.
Yeah. And have you used any external testing platforms to provide that assessment for you when you go in?
When I go in, no, because often when you're going in, a lot of that work has been done by the investor.
Right. Okay.
So you want access to that.
Yes.
You hope, and always it's rare that I can't think of an occasion where that I haven't been able to look at that.
Right.
And as I'm sure you know now, there's pretty sophisticated diligence around the assessment of the team that the private equity investor themselves undertakes.
Yeah.
So to access that, and more fully if you don't.
Yeah. Because
when things do go wrong, if that diligence has been done, and I've seen it, you go back and read or reread, and you thought, actually, it was there in black and white. You knew that was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
I put it on my show. I didn't take appropriate action or put the change in that was needed to address that, and that's come back to bite me.
Interesting.
So,
The CEO position, obviously, as we talked about, is the most crucial. And you've already touched upon some of the qualities you would expect to see, namely that inspirational point.
Vision.
That hand on the tiller, really someone who's got a read on the measure of the business and the market. What are the other qualities you would look for in a strong CEO, successful CEO?
I mean, high emotional intelligence, really. To without that, then I don't think any good CEO I've worked with, has to have that as really top priority. I think their ability to build a strong, dynamic and fellowship within the senior management team as well, to bring the cohesiveness to that team.
Yeah.
So whether it's done through inspiration, through vision, or through engagement, or a combination of all of those, to bring their team with them.
Yeah.
You can have a visionary leader, but if they can't bring the team along with them on that vision, then that's another car crash waiting to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lonely job. I mean,
yeah, it is.
It
is.
You know, who can you confide in?
Yeah.
It's there's not. You know, when you're developing your career, you have your peers you can speak to, bounce ideas across.
Yeah.
But suddenly, when you're in the top job, the CEO role.
All the more reason why you need a chair that you can talk to in that
absolutely.
regard. No, I agree with you, and it is, and not many people see that actually. Certainly that's been one of the challenges as CEO myself. Sure. Is that, but not so much lack of appreciation, but understanding that actually it is quite lonely at the top, and that having people around you is so important, as you say.
And you're making difficult decisions, but you want a reference point on those,
right? And also, the ability to, I mean, I sound like a politician, but please. 100% of the people 100% of the time as a CEO is almost impossible.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Let's talk about chairs and NEDs, because clearly, obviously, that's your world now. Advice for people who want to become a chair in NED. What's the right time for someone? I mean, it's easy to a certain extent to go to an NED position, a non-exec position, but NED then to chair is a different kettle of fish. But so the standard transition is full-time job. And in parallel to that, or immediately afterwards, as you did with LDC, take on 2 NED roles. Is that right? I mean, what's the correct? And then that path from NED, what's the differential between an NED and a chair then?
Well, I think huge. I think huge. And I think the benefit, well, if you've been in the private equity environment as I was, I had the huge benefit of working with some great inspirational chairs, as I said. But if you haven't had that opportunity, I think becoming an NED first and working with great chairs, gives you an insight as to what good looks like and how you can adapt your own personality and skill based to that role. Where I have found it, not worked, to be blunt, or been more challenging, are those individuals that go straight from a CEO role to a chair role.
Right. Too much of a leap.
Too much, and they can't take that step back.
Yeah.
You've got to realise that the difference between the full-time role and the part-time role, and there are chairs I've worked with in the last 11 years where I've been an ed rather than a chair on the board.
Yeah.
Where I've seen that, and I hope I've done it and handled it in the right way. Where I've had to take them aside and say, look, you need to give the CEO some air here.
Yeah.
We'll give them some space. So I think, take on an ed role or two.
Yeah. As the first step.
Yeah. And then take that learning into the chair role.
Yeah.
But the chair is a hugely and highly responsible role. I know from a fiduciary point of view, whether you're a non-exec or chair, it's broadly the same.
Yeah.
But in terms of responsibilities, and positioning and so on, the chair role is.
I mean, it's almost to a point your name is above the door with the CEO.
It is, and you share that stress.
Yeah.
And challenge that the CEO is dealing with, and have to understand that. So, it's not a role you should take on lightly. I think it could be hugely fulfilling.
Yeah.
But it's very different from an ed. But the NEDs also need to recognise that, and need to recognise that they need to support the chair in that,
and
not just sort of turn up, shuffle the papers.
I mean, that team is as crucial as the leadership team within an organisation.
A lot of people use the phrase followership. And that's key. You need to provide that support as a NED to the chair as well, so they don't feel isolated or feel they have to come and ask you to do something. You should be looking to take some of that burden off the chair.
Great. There's no training programs for this, is there? I mean, a number of business schools will run modules based on an MBA, etc. as well. Are there sort of programs out there that help? I mean, have you seen any that you sort of raised?
So the business schools run I've worked in the past with the FT.
Right.
They run a diploma, a non-exec diploma.
Right.
And I get called in as an old lag to give them some war stories and so on as part of that.
Is that good?
It's good. I think so. Yeah, I mean, there's people I've met participating really good, and kept in contact with some of those since, and they found that really helpful and worthwhile.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think some of the business schools will offer something similar as well. But you're right, there's not a huge amount out there. It's really about learning
your experience and learning from other people.
Yeah.
So let's talk about sort of some of the lessons and learnings that you've had. What are the biggest leadership lessons from your career over the years? Never assume anything. I mean, it's make sure your team are with you. Yeah. And just
however you best do that, and part of that's done obviously within the work environment, but invest the time outside the work environment as well.
Yeah.
To really understand whether they are with you, you have their support. If they've got any concerns, they might not want to voice them in a formal environment.
Yeah.
So invest the time outside of that formal environment, whatever works with the individuals involved, and really know that they're with you, because I've made mistakes. I've thought, you know, it was clear about the direction I thought we needed to head in, and I thought the team were with me, only to find they weren't.
Right.
And
you can underestimate just how crucial that sort of beer after work type scenario is.
Whatever works.
You know, that social setting, really just getting out of the office. And
also understanding your team and understanding their situation outside of work as well.
Yeah.
And being able to empathise with that.
Yeah.
Because you bring your home life into the office.
100%.
I mean, you can't not do that. And unless you really understand and see what challenges and stresses they might be under in that, then it enables you to hopefully engage appropriately.
No, I agree. And that assumption piece I completely identify with. I think that point as well, sort of, you know, the assumption really does catch people out. You know, I think, I guess.
Yeah.
No, actually find out, define.
Exactly.
Here's a question. What might you tell your younger self who's starting out in private equity today? Now, obviously the market's changed dramatically, but what would you tell your younger self now if you were starting in private equity today?
There's a few things I think I say. Key is never stop learning.
Yeah.
Never stop. But keep an open mind and embrace new opportunities and new developments. I'd say never be shocked by anything. You can be surprised by something.
Yeah.
But try not to be shocked. There are still things that I'd never thought I'd see that I've seen, and situations you've had to deal with that you never thought you'd have to deal with. But keep your cool, be prepared for the unexpected, and I think that's also maintain your curiosity.
Yeah.
I mean, just be quizzical, just challenge. And I think we've touched on it already, and hopefully I did embrace this pretty early on, but the value of a network.
Yeah.
To support you in your own development career, to support the businesses you work with, absolutely fundamental.
And just on that point, that building the network in person, not virtual, right? As you say, pressing the flesh, that aspect of it. You know, the generation today, and I think it's one of the challenges I face to a point now, certainly post-COVID, is this getting people out from behind a screen. Yeah. You know, that, Teams, Zoom or whatever isn't the way you build rapport, empathy and trust. No. It's not the way you build that network. No, it's not how you build that connectivity, is it?
No. And you have to do it. And again, things have changed. The whole idea of we're all going down the pub.
Yeah.
That was a child of whichever decade that was. So that's nice. But whatever works with you and your peer group, do that. Go and spend time with them in whatever the right environment is, whether it's competitive gaming or whatever it is, that's the right environment.
Yeah.
Go and do that. But that network is invaluable. And look, I go back to that time when I started with 3i. So I was at lunch yesterday. The other three people at the lunch were 3 colleagues from 3i. I got dinner in 6 weeks' time. 2 guys who were my mentors when I first joined 3i. I mean, just a couple of examples, but that's a network that's endured for 40 years. And those relationships,
so powerful,
and they've helped me out so much, and I've learned a lot. But they've been so helpful and so supportive.
But I also assume that, I would imagine these are people that you could pick up the phone to at any time and say, "I need a favour."
Yeah, and they would. And if you've treated them properly throughout that time, they know you wouldn't be asking about the favour unless you really needed it. And that's actually the joy that you've managed those relationships correctly when you do have an ask, and people respond, but also respond promptly to you. Yeah. Then you think, okay.
And that's how the world works, isn't it? Absolutely. That quick pro quo sort of environment.
And that's one thing AI I think will be. I mean, one thing AI won't replace immediately anyway is that whole interpersonal relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. So powerful.
Yeah.
Tim, brilliant to talk to you today. I mean, your experience, your career history is phenomenal. Thank you. It's been great getting to know you over the last few months now. But, I mean, thank you for sharing your story with us and your insight with us. And thank you for joining us as well. I look forward to the next episode with you.